Fallout is an open world video game. The world is so massive and there's thousands of hours of gameplay. I guess one of the challenges in adapting it was to shift from the one character's perspective of the game to a polyphonic narrative to keep the audience engaged. How necessary was it to you to explore the wasteland through different points of view?
Yeah, I mean polyphonic. Thank you. That's what our goal was, polyphony from the jump. Yeah, I think it was a necessary device to just cover more ground. Like you described, thousands of hours of gameplay. We have 8 hours for our first season. So how do we cover as much ground as quickly as possible and explore this world as intimately as possible through the perspective of characters who've led entirely different lives in the world of Fallout. Um, so yeah, we talked a lot about the good and the bad, the ugly is a great example of a piece of work that explored the Wild West that way, and why not explore it again, several hundred years later in a similar way. It's been that long since that movie came out, right?
Been a minute.
And I guess there was also the challenge of the tone. I mean, the comedy is kind of in support of the drama. How did you balance the level of satire and dark humor? Because the games are incredibly dark and so detailed, but at the same time, they're also deeply weird and funny, I guess.
Deeply weird being the right word. I came to the franchise playing Fallout 3 many, many years ago, just as a fan, as a gamer. And I had never quite experienced that tone before, that combination. That's one of the things that games can do that I think because they're more expansive, because you literally spend in a great game a lot more time in these worlds. They can be different things, but I had never quite experienced that collision of tones before. And it was one of the most frightening but exhilarating parts of it. It was working with Graham, whose background is in comedy, with Geneva, whose background, like mine, is more in comic book movies, and trying to bring all those things together, I think for me was one of the most exciting experiences that I've had on a set.
The apocalypse is usually seen as something destructive, but actually in Fallout, you're building two words. There's the word after and the word before as well. So in a sense, it is not the end of the world, but the beginning of more words. And to me, there is also something optimistic about that. What do you think?
I love that take. I'm looking forward to reading your review. Because yeah, I do think there is
Thank
something
you.
inherently optimistic about Fallout in a few ways. One is the world doesn't, people call it it's the end of the world, but it doesn't really end, it just changes. And I think that would be true if it were to happen in real life as well. And we talk a lot about the idea of the end of the world being entirely subjective. Like for some people, the end of the world was when it was bell bottoms, one of the many ends of the world, TikTok, sure, maybe that's the end of the world. Reality TV for me was like, oh my God, the end it's coming. So it is subjective, but the world just seems to keep going and it just takes on different shapes. And one of the most optimistic things to me about the world of Fallout is that people are still weird, that you can't bomb that out of us. And that there is human beings, the eccentricity and our foibles will survive as long as we do.
Do you believe we're witnessing an era of video game to film adaptations similar to what was once the trend of the audiovisual product based off books? Because I think there is finally a push towards achieving cult status and celebrating interactive narratives. There's a sense of change in the air. What do you think?
Yeah, I think sometimes it takes a minute for Hollywood to figure out how to digest a certain organism. That's what we do, right? We sort of take in culture and figure out how to make it work for our medium. And I think it's taken a number of filmmakers and a number of attempts to get to a place where you figure out how do you take an interactive medium. Usually with adaptation, you are adding something. You're taking a book and you're adding images. With video games, you're actually taking something away. You're taking away the audience's ability to turn the camera around and explore every different corner, especially in a game like Fallout. And so I think that then it becomes a question of which of these stories are actually worth adapting. What is there underneath the gameplay that is essential? And that's why for us, something like Fallout, which has such a distinct and exciting universe, was such an exciting proposition. But I do think I've been in this position now twice in my career, standing at the ground floor of what is poised to be an explosion of interest in these worlds, the worlds that have emerged from gaming over the last few years.